The story starts with an exciting game message celebrating a player's big win. With a smile, he checks out the flood of comments, with everyone calling him a legend and praising him for being the first to beat Empire Defense after it has been out for a decade. He grabs his mic and confidently declares that no game is too tough for him. This guy is not your average gamer. He is a bold streamer who is always looking for the next big challenge. His YouTube channel, Classic Gamer Geek, totally shows off his love for gaming. As if things could not get any more hype, one viewer hits him with an epic $300 donation. Over the moon and super grateful, he mentions how all this support helped him snag the win. However, he confidently believes that his gaming skills are excellent and feels proud of his achievements as a committed gamer. The streamer notices a comment from a viewer who feels sad about the Saint's death in the final battle. He realizes that people grew attached to the characters and wanted them all to survive. In the end, only Lucas, the main character, made it through. The streamer's main goal was to beat the game rather than save everyone. After defeating the final boss, the game states that Lucas was the MVP in the hardest difficulty. As the battle ends, Lucas remains still. Even though he is just a character, something about his stillness makes him feel sad. The screen fades to black, and the credits roll. The name of the game's lone developer appears. Someone in the chat jokes that the developer should give the streamer a reward. He laughs and says he played for fun and does not need anything. The chat does not believe him. They tease him and say he would accept a reward if someone offered one. He keeps laughing and insists that he would not. He also mentions that the developer disappeared years ago and probably does not care if someone finally finished the game. A system window suddenly appears. A message from the director of Empire Defense shows up on the screen. The streamer leans forward in shock. His chat fills up with reactions from his audience. The message thanks him for beating the game. It says that the developer had lost hope that anyone would ever finish it. The streamer feels flattered and replies that there is no need for thanks. The system responds again and expresses relief that hope still exists. The streamer sits there in confusion. He wonders if this means Empire Defense is getting a sequel. The system keeps going, saying the streamer has proven himself worthy of helping them. He's confused and starts to doubt if the message is even legit, thinking about kicking out the so-called game developer. But then he suddenly feels dizzy and collapses to the floor. As he's passing out, he catches a glimpse of his monitors and wonders if his viewers will call for help. Just before he blackouts, a last message pops up on the screen, thanking him for playing Empire Defense. Suddenly, a loud crash breaks the silence like something's crashing down fast. His eyes snap open and he stares in shock. He quickly figures out he's in a totally different world, wearing some wild new clothes. The ground shakes and a huge noise booms in the air. A massive stone pillar right before him explodes from a magical blast, sending debris flying toward him. He instinctively throws himself to the ground, covering his head and screaming. When he gets up, he shields his face, wondering if the sharp smell in the air is gunpowder. Out of nowhere, guards nearby start firing their cannons, causing him to struggle again. A huge explosion goes off behind him, freaking him out even more. He looks around and sees an army of armored warriors charging forward, shouting that they must stop the enemy from breaking through. Looking completely lost, the streamer suddenly drops to the ground, stunned by what's happening around him. The guards and warriors are in the middle of a wild fight, and some weird green stuff is splashing everywhere. He's trying to make sense of the chaos when one of the guards spots him and rushes over. The warrior gives him a frightening look, making the streamer freak out and beg him to back off. But to his surprise, the guard just drops his sword, kneels down, and bows his head, acting like he is some kind of royalty asking for forgiveness. He notices something flying toward them. It smashes the wall and explodes, sending him crashing to the ground. As he struggles to get up, he sees green flames consuming the people caught in the blast. A warrior stops beside him, pointing into the distance and yelling that the enemy is attacking and they have to stop them from scaling the walls. Another warrior charges forward with his sword drawn, letting out a fierce battle cry. But a massive tentacle pierces him and lifts the warrior into the air, killing him instantly. Another tentacle swings through the battlefield, slicing off a warrior's hand. The severed hand lands right next to the streamer. Blood splashes onto his face, sending chills through his entire body. The creature's tentacles tear through the warriors, and nothing they do seems to stop it. Then, a gigantic spider crawls over the wall and into the fortress. It stops in front of the streamer and lets out a deafening scream, making him cover his ears. Several infantry soldiers try to attack, but they are brutally taken down. The streamer stands frozen, realizing his entire body is shaking with fear. The massive creature moves closer, its heavy footsteps echoing like thunder. He stares at it, unable to believe what he is seeing. This has to be a nightmare. It can't be real. The spider raises one of its legs, ready to strike. Terror grips him, but he can't die like this. Suddenly, a young man with blonde hair rushes toward him and draws his sword, which glows with powerful energy. With one swift, forceful strike, he unleashes all that energy into his blade and slices through the monstrous spider. The knight looks at the streamer, who seems dazed, and asks why he looks so tired. Everything that is happening leaves him completely stunned. He cannot even speak. The knight looks at him with confusion and asks if he is hurt. His mind races as he recalls a familiar game character. Then it hits him. He knows this knight. Shocked, he asks if he is Lucas. Lucas's eyes fill with tears. Even after all this time, the streamer still recognizes him. He has been his lifelong guard, and now they are standing face to face. The streamer can hardly believe believe what he is seeing. Lucas is right there, alive. Then he realizes where he is. He is standing on top of a massive fortress wall. Below them, a swarm of giant spiders charges straight toward them. Somehow, he has been pulled into the Empire's defense. Sweat drips down his face as reality sinks in. He is inside the hardest level of the game he has just beaten. This game is known for being brutal and unforgiving. He stares at the incoming wave of monstrous spider-like creatures as his body trembles. This feels like a nightmare. A green liquid oozes out from the back of this huge spider, splattering against the walls and blowing up like crazy. One of the blobs crashes into the wall near the streamer, exploding, and he quickly shields his face with his hands. He can't believe the mess around him, and he is totally freaked out about how he ended up stuck in this game. Seeing the streamer frozen in shock, Lucas shakes him by the shoulders and says they're surrounded by a whole army of black spiders. The base is on the brink of being destroyed, but they'll start getting weaker when the sun sets. They just need to hang on for another 30 minutes. Lucas pulls out his sword, turning to face a bunch of spiders closing in on them. He tells the streamer to do whatever it takes to keep them alive. The streamer wonders why Lucas is so determined to protect him. Everyone calls him His Imperial Majesty, but he is still confused about who that really makes Lucas. Later that evening, many soldiers tended to the wounded. At the same time, Lucas, his armor stained with blood from the battle, explained that the army of black spiders had begun to retreat as the sun set. The streamer didn't respond, his face somber as he gazed at the countless monster corpses and debris scattered across the ground. After a moment, he asked Lucas where they were and when this happened. Lucas replied that it was the last day of February in 649, according to the imperial calendar, and that they were at the city's forward operating base. Feeling a surge of frustration, the streamer suddenly realizes he recognizes the scene as he's been through this moment many times in the game. His face twists in worry as he admits he is actually Ash, the born hater, ever black. Lucas confirms it, but he isn't thrilled about the news. Ash is the crazy third prince of the Empire, the worst commander responsible for many soldiers dying in the fortress city. He's the character stuck with the crappiest death in the game's tutorial. Now trapped in Ash's body, the streamer can't help but wonder why he has to be this idiot. In the commander's bunker, he glares at his reflection, frustrated with himself for leaving the city and his castle. This whole thing is a classic Empire defense game, infamous for how tough it is, with only 2 levels, Hellish Mode and Iron Man, which saves progress automatically. He remembers Iron Man Hell mixes both modes, and he's the only player who beats it. No matter where the game takes him, he thinks he can find a way out, except for this stupid part of the tutorial. Ash pulls up the system window, thinking this level will be a nightmare to beat. It seems totally designed to be unwinnable, starting off with Lucas barely escaping a horde of invading monsters. In this game that lasts for 3 years, you cannot even face the army of black spiders until the middle of the second year, which makes it impossible for him to win right at the start. Tapping into his classic gamer instincts, Ash zones in with a determined look. He reminds himself he's been through this game before. Using his knowledge and experience, he feels confident he can figure something out, even if the sight of the system window initially made him feel a bit lost. What surprises him is the 55th level, almost at 60, with nearly 1,000 spiders crawling around. He checks out the system window and sees the only item he can use, a mana cannon, but even that doesn't give him much hope of winning. He needs a better chance at winning. In Iron Man mode, there is no saving or loading, and one wrong move means the game is over. After 6 months of playing, he has learned one thing, which is that there is almost always a way to survive. Scanning the system windows, he looks for any tiny chance that could tip the odds in his favor. With determination, he clicks on a window and gets ready to hunt for a solution. Ash kicks the door open and calls out for Lucas. Spotting him by the entrance, he tells him to get the reinforcement team together fast. Lucas looks a bit taken aback and mentions that His Majesty has never needed them before. Ash doesn't wait for more chatter, snapping at him to just get it done. With a smirk, he says he plans to get them out of this mess. After a bit, Lucas stands in front of Ash with a few others, each reacting differently to the situation. Ash takes a moment to study their faces, remembering their names from the game. He spots Lily, the cheerful girl with a staff, then glances at Ken, the armored guy who looks pretty unhappy. Finally, there's Damien, the priest with glasses, sitting on the floor, hugging his knees. Ash thinks to himself that he's seen these characters bite the dust over and over in the game. Everyone except Lucas. Curious, Ash asks Damien why he looks so down. Damien's face is red with sadness and tears roll down his cheeks. Lily gently tells Ash that Damien is grieving for a fallen comrade and asks him to go easy on him. Even though Ash is the team's healer, he can't help but think that Damien is pretty much the least useful member and probably the first to go down because of his weird condition. Ash says it's time for a serious chat and explains everyone's roles in the upcoming battle. He starts things off with Lily, recalling that she's a mage specializing in fire attacks and the main damage dealer. She can unload some serious spells one after another. Ash tells her that she'll need to act as their shield, blocking the spider's attacks like a tank. Lily is shocked and quickly points out that she's actually a magician. Ash just brushes her off and turns to Ken, who looks unhappy. Usually Ken's job as a knight is to draw the enemy's attention with his shield and act as a tank, but Ash surprises him by saying he wants him to sneak into the enemy camp and mess up their formations. Ash shifts his focus to Damien and remembers that he's a healer, the most important class in the game. But now, he tells him, he will be the sniper sniper, taking out the key target. Then Ash turns to Lucas, telling him to rally the remaining soldiers and hold the line by the wall. Everyone just stands there for a moment, staring at him in silence. Ash starts to feel impatient, wondering why nobody's speaking up yet. Out of nowhere, Ken explodes, pounding his fist against the wall. He throws it back at Ash, demanding to know if he thinks his crazy plan will work. Ken can't believe Ash is serious about all the wild stuff he's just said. He accuses him of getting them into hot water with his bad calls, and now he wants to do something even more insane. Ash feels super embarrassed by Ken's outburst. He stares at him, confused, thinking this isn't really Ken, but some messed up version of himself. It seems wild, but he knows they can't beat this level using normal tactics, so going for broke is the only way. He can't back down now, but Ken is definitely not on board with the idea. Ash calls Ken over, looking really serious. With bloodshot eyes, he asks in a cold voice how Ken, the Emperor's son and the highest-ranking guy in the room, can be so disobedient. Everyone around them is scared stiff of Ash, the Psycho Lord. Ken is shaking, frozen by fear, and tries to defend himself but can't find the right words. Ash, grinning in a creepy way with a dark vibe around him, starts to realize that the real crazy person is right before him. If he loses it now, everything is done for. Ash slowly got up and walked to the middle of the room. Lily watched him with a confused expression as he slowly drew his dagger from its sheath. He swung the dagger sharply without warning, thinking he needed everyone to follow him without question. He plunged the blade into Lily's shoulder, who was standing right next to him. Everyone is blank, taken aback by what he's just done. Lily is shaking with fear, and the shock from the pain leaves her speechless. Ash grins and asks if they are ready to get on with their tasks. Since he is stuck in the body of a psycho, he figures he might as well act like one. They all stand frozen, staring as Ash presses the dagger against Lily's shoulder. Ken is shocked. He thinks the prince must have lost mind. How could they fight under a leader so reckless, especially when mages are so important? Suddenly, flames shoot out from Lily's wound. Ash watches as the fire surrounds his dagger, surprising everyone. He says this is supposed to happen, and thinks all the tutorial characters have hidden abilities that go against their roles. Ash looks at Lily and asks if she remembers getting cut by a blade when she was a kid. After goblins attacked her village, she awakened her fire skin ability. Her intense fear of sharp weapons triggered it. This skill lets her turn her skin into flames, burning up mana every time it blocks a physical attack. Lily is totally stunned and confused. Ash figures out that the main damage dealer can also take a hit. It isn't played right in the game, but this is the real deal now. He pulls the dagger out of her shoulder, ready to take advantage of her strength. He smiles, thinking this level might actually be unbeatable. If it is, he is ready to play dirty, just like the crazy guy who trapped him hinted. He is set on finishing the game, and then tracking down that lunatic to give him a beating his mom wouldn't even recognize. Ash pulls the dagger from Lily's shoulder and feels bad for being so harsh to prove his point. Lily, still in shock, asks how he knows all this. Ash dismisses her question, saying it isn't important right now. He shoots a sly look at Ken, which makes the knight nervous. Ash then asks if he has ever stolen anything as a kid, because this is common in the slums where he grew up. Ken wants to know how Ash figures that out, but Ash waves off the question and says what matters is that they can continue with their plan now that he knows this stuff. The system chimes in, letting Ash know that Ken has some pickpocket skills from his thieving days. He can stay hidden when danger comes and avoid being noticed, but this uses a lot of his health points. Ash asks if Ken can be stealthy enough to stay hidden. With an intense look, he raises his dagger and warns Ken to give a good answer or else Ash will make him tell the truth. Ken quickly bows and agrees that Ash is correct and that he can do it. Ash puts the dagger on the table and moves closer to Damien, whom he sees as the main person to talk to. He sits down in front of Damien, smiling, and mentions Damien's sharp eyesight, which has allowed him to see his friend's death. Damien, quiet and sad, explains that his friend from their hometown sacrifices himself to save him during a battle. He then breaks down in tears and asks why Ash has brought them there. He is desperate and wants to know if their suffering is just for Ash's entertainment. He pleads for Van to be returned to him. Ash tells Damien that he can hate him all he wants, but the fact remains that Van has sacrificed himself to save him, and now Damien is just going to sit around and wait to die, wasting the life his friend gave up for him. Ash is not having it. He urges Damien to fight back and avenge Van and survive by killing the spiders. He even pounds his own chest and challenges him. He says he wants to kill them. Damien is still in tears, but he stops for a moment. He thinks about it and finally agrees. Ash is still serious, but he does not stop there. He asks if Damien wants to kill him too. Damien looks down and considers it. After a brief pause, he admits that he does. The whole room goes silent and everyone is stunned by his response. But Ash only grins and says it is good, like that is exactly what he wants to hear. Pointing at himself, he makes a promise that if they make it out alive, Damien can be the one to take his life when the time comes. Lucas is furious and calls out to him, but Ash silences him with a simple hand gesture. He calmly explains that if their plan fails, they will all die anyway. So in that case, he will keep his word on the honor of the Imperial family. Then he turns back to Damien and tells him to listen and follow his orders. He is not trying to suppress Damien's hatred. He's going to use it to fuel the fight. Damien hesitates, but then starts to rise. Even if his anger is aimed at Ash, he knows what he has to do. With a guilty look, he admits he has no excuses. His own bad judgment has nearly wiped out their entire army, but thanks to his new plan, they can push the monsters back. The odds are not great, but he asks everyone to trust him just this once. As the room falls into serious silence, he feels like this is his moment, his all-or-nothing nothing hand, either a royal straight flush or a total loss. But at this point, he has nothing left to lose. The next day, the sound of the guard's drum echoes through the fortress and sends a wave of alarm through everyone. The Black Spider army is approaching fast. As the massive swarm of giant spiders charges toward them, Ash gathers his warriors and lays out the plan. While the team fights off the spiders, they need to track down the queen who controls the swarm and blast her head off with the mana cannon. They have removed the limiter and boosted the cannon's power, enough to take her down. The real challenge is spotting her from a safe distance. Sharp eyes alone will not be enough. A bright light flashes as Ash activates his map creation skill. He is confident that they can make it happen. Ash sets up this huge wall of energy around the fortress, which is pretty amazing. Thanks to his skills in creating characters and maps, he can see everything around him like a mini-map. When he checks his stats, most of the area looks pretty normal, but the mapping skill gives him a bit of hope. He starts hunting for the queen spider's location, but she doesn't show up on the map at all, even with the swarm of spiders getting closer. The gates swing open for Ken, who is carrying several red stamina potions that Ash gave him earlier to help distract the spiders. Lily is down in the underground passage, super nervous since Ash has given her an important job. If the spiders manage to break through to the artillery unit, she has to use her fiery skin to block them off. She keeps telling herself she can do it. At the same time, Lucas is getting ready to attack. Watching the massive army of spiders rush toward the fortress, he tells his team to hold steady. They need to give Ash enough time to find and take down the queen. He sees that Ash is readying himself and shouts at everyone to get ready to fire. Ash feels nervous because he can't find the queen spider. Lucas quickly gives the order to open fire. The team uses crossbows and cannons, hitting a large group of spiders and disrupting their attack. With his ability, Ash glances at Lucas but stays quiet, feeling stressed about the situation. He knows the tutorial is not just about defeating boss monsters. It makes sense that the spider queen does not show up on the map because her marker will likely appear when things get tough. Ash believes she is hiding in the area. When he sees several red markers getting closer, he shouts for Damien. He points at the markers and asks Damien if he can see what is coming. Damien spots a group of spiders and asks if the queen is among them. Ash nods, confirming that the creature with a spider's lower half and a human upper body is definitely the queen. He tells Damien there is no need to panic because soon the queen will get hit by the cannons and feel a lot of pain. They just need to turn the gun to the southwest and aim correctly as the artillery is ready for his signal. Ash tells Damien to aim at the target, but Damien hesitates, admitting he's never done anything like this before. Ash reminds him that if he misses and messes up the plan, it will all fall on him. He urges Damien to just do what he's told, pull the trigger. This is his shot at getting revenge for his friend, Van. Driven by anger, Damien suddenly feels pumped up, and then he gets the notification that his all-seeing eye ability is activated. He pulls the lever, and the cannon bursts out with this crazy bright mana energy all around. A solid beam shoots out towards the monsters, zooming through the air and shifting direction like it has a mind of its own. With high hopes, Ash yells that it has to hit. The energy hits with a massive explosion. One warrior catches the scene and points out that it actually connects with the monsters. The soldiers cheer and hug Damien, unbelieving that this is his first time firing a cannon. Damien reluctantly says he is just following orders. Once he pulls the trigger, it feels like his body takes control. Thanks to Damien's special ability, Ash knows he won't miss. He chuckles, realizing that Damien wouldn't have been able to handle a real weapon in the game. But here, all he has to do is operate a cannon. Before Ash can wrap his head around what's going on, something surprises him. He notices the swarm of spiders still moving toward the fortress and starts to wonder what's up. He grabs a telescope just as a soldier yells that another wave of spiders is coming in. Peering through the lens, Ash sees a huge crowd of spiders and thinks they are actually moving in a square formation. The Spider Queen lets out a creepy shriek that sends chills down his spine. Her cries reach the spiders on the fortress walls, and they suddenly start to retreat. The soldiers are confused and wonder why the spiders are backing off. They ask if they have managed to hurt the queen and what will happen to her. Ash stands there, shocked, muttering that it can't be real. A soldier takes a look through the telescope and shouts that they are in deep trouble. All the spiders are now charging straight toward the artillery setup. They watch in awe as the entire spider army moves like a well-oiled machine, and Ash realizes that the queen is way smarter than your average bug. Next to the fortress, Ken is breathing hard and feeling anxious. He has only one stamina potion left. While hiding behind a tree, he hears loud explosions nearby and wonders if he should run away. Feeling defeated, he drops his sword and kneels down. At the same time, Damien hits the Spider Queen again. Ash looks at the spiders attacking the wall and realizes they are still coming. The Spider Queen is not defeated yet, and he worries they haven't caused enough damage. The queen of the spider army goes down with just a few cannon shots, which is surprising. But this tutorial boss seems stronger. Without clear information about her, Ash is unsure what to do next. Suddenly, a soldier shouts that the mana cannon is almost empty after the heavy explosions. Ash quickly asks how many shots are left. 3 more, the soldier replies. Ash knows they have just 3 shots to defeat the Spider Queen. Ash's mind races, and he's really worried about Damien. His eyes look rough from using his ability, and he wonders if Damien can even take more of this. Thankfully, the central castle walls hold strong, but then someone shouts that a demolisher is heading their way. It's this huge spider that oozes green goo from its back. Ash can't believe it. Nothing like this ever happens in the game. Without skipping a beat, he tells everyone to focus their fire on the demolisher, but even all the blasts barely slow it down. The giant spider charges right at the fortress. With a huge thud, the demolisher crashes into the wall and breaks through. Smoke pours out of its head as it collapses, but now a whole swarm of spiders pours through the hole it makes. Lucas grabs his sword and yells for everyone to charge and attack. Ash reassures his cannon crew that the soldiers on the ground will hold the line, and they need to keep shooting to take down the Spider Queen before the monsters reach the artillery. After loading another cannonball, Ash calls out to Damien. Even with the strain showing in his eyes, Damien quickly pulls the lever. A loud boom echoes in the distance, and a soldier yells that they have hit their target, but the Spider Queen is still standing. Ash yells for them to load the next shot right away. Lucas is launching strong area attacks to eliminate spider waves. He shouts that they need to protect the artillery and keep the prince safe. From the tower, Ash watches in fear as the spiders overwhelm the battlefield, taking down his soldiers one by one with their huge legs. The number of death keeps rising, and Ash remembers that, in the game, those deaths were just numbers. Now, with the screams and the smell of blood, it feels very real and terrifying. He feels that everything is getting out of control. He looks at the artillery and wonders if they have even 5 shots left. He worries that the cannon might fail before they can even use the 4th shot. Lucas and his team are pushed back to the wall, struggling to hold their ground. It's chaotic, and Lucas can't see a way out. Then Ken appears at the breach in the wall, shouting at the monsters. All the spiders turn their attention to him and charge. Ash can't believe it. Ken drinks his last stamina potion and yells that he's a knight of the Empire. The spiders leave the soldiers near Lucas and go after Ken, who runs and hides behind a stone. Ken smiles as dark energy surrounds him. The system warns him that he is using a survival skill meant for small-time thieves. Ash sees the warning and shouts at Ken to stop because he doesn't have enough stamina to use it. Suddenly, Ken is surrounded by spiders as his ability fails to activate. Regretting that he trusted Ash, Ken is brutally attacked by the monsters. Blood splatters everywhere as Ash watches in horror. The system notifies Ash that he has lost a member of his army. Ash stands frozen in horror as he hears the sickening sound of Ken's flesh being ripped apart even from a distance. He watches helplessly as the spiders devour him and the weight of his own orders crushes him. Another life was lost because of him. Determined not to let Ken's sacrifice be for nothing, the soldiers charge toward the breach in the wall and get ready to push the monsters back. But Ash cannot shake the dread creeping in. Every soldier outside is dying because of his decisions. It feels like he is the one killing them and everything is spiraling out of control. He remembers how back in the game he always used NPCs as bait. The whole system felt built on sacrifice. Every time a window popped up asking if he wanted to send another team, he always agreed just to save someone, get an item, finish a side quest, or earn an achievement. He sent people to their deaths without a second thought. But now its full weight crashes down on him. He has had enough. He cannot take it anymore. He screams at the monsters to stop, and the unbearable pain of every life lost overwhelms him. Then out of nowhere, a giant spider launches straight at him. His shout must have caught their attention, and now they are going wild. Before it can reach him, a glowing sword slices through the air and strikes the spider in midair. Lucas controls the blade with his power and glares at the creature. He shouts and demands to know how it dared target his prince. Lucas turns to Ash and asks if he is alright. Ash barely registers the question. His eyes lock onto the spider writhing on the tower's edge and screeching in pain. Without hesitation, he grabs his dagger and decapitates it in one swift motion. There is only one way to stop these monsters, and that is to kill them before they kill us. Nearby, a soldier by the overheated cannon shouts that the 4th shell is ready. But before they fire, Ash turns to Damien and asks if he can still shoot. Wiping the blood from his eyes, Damien grits his teeth and loudly assures him that he can. He pulls the gun's handle, and the cannon fires a powerful shot. The shot tears through the air toward the Spider Queen. Spiders leap into its path, trying to block it, but they're instantly destroyed. The Queen screams as the blast hits her, causing a massive explosion to erupt. Ash watches as the 4th shot strikes her directly in the head, but she's still not dead. Instead, she unleashes a deafening scream, sending out powerful shockwaves. The knights on the tower are overwhelmed, sinking into despair. Nearby, a soldier stares at his burned hands and warns that the cannon has reached its limit. If they fire again, it'll explode. He looks at Ash with worry and suggests they give up. It feels like all hope is gone. Ash starts to wonder if this is really the end. He inspects the cannon, realizing it's barely holding together. Then, he glances down and sees their line of defense has been breached. Damien, their sniper, can barely keep his eyes open. Ash silently wishes for some kind of miracle. Just then, a soldier scanning the battlefield with a telescope shouts that they still have a chance. He points out that the Queen's skin is damaged from their shots and insists that one more hit could take her down. Ash is stunned, admiring how the scout stayed focused on his duty even in the middle of all this chaos. Before he can react, something catches his eye, a mass of green slime speeding straight toward the tower. It slams into them with a violent explosion, shaking the ground beneath them. Lucas immediately calls out, shouting Ash's name as everything turns to chaos. The tower collapses. Ash falls with the debris, feeling like all hope is gone. As he dives, he hears Lucas calling for him and sees a blurry image of him ahead. When Ash comes back to his senses, he's on the ground, with Lucas shielding him from the falling rubble. Lucas is badly injured. Ash anxiously asks if he's hurt. Lucas weakly says he's fine, but Ash goes silent when he notices the heavy bleeding. Lucas collapses, his face filled with sadness. Then, Lucas asks if Ash remembers something from 20 years ago. Ash realizes he has no memory of it. As a player in this character's body, he has no past with Lucas at all. Lucas, struggling to speak, says that when His Highness first chose him as his guard, he told him something important right here, in this very spot. Ash, confused, asks him what he said back then. In the flashback, Lucas remembers a moment from childhood when His Highness tells him that even if he cannot become emperor, he will still be the most remarkable man in the world. He tells Lucas to strive to be the greatest knight ever. Those words stay with Lucas his whole life. He believes in His Highness completely. Ash feels the weight of the moment and asks if Lucas still believes in him. Lucas looks serious and says he always will. Then exhaustion takes over and he collapses under a heavy stone slab. Ash pulls him out and lays him gently on the ground. He thinks Lucas cannot die because he is the one who will save this world. Ash looks around and tries to figure out how long he has been unconscious. He sees that Damien and the other gunners are hurt but alive. The cannon is destroyed. Then something clicks. How are they still alive? Where have the spiders gone? He hears Lily's voice. She stands covered in flames, badly injured, but still fighting off several spiders stabbing at her. She clenches her teeth in pain, looks at Ash with hope, and asks if it is finally over. Ash runs toward her, but Lily stops him with a raised hand. She holds a potion in her other hand and says she can't hold out much longer. She can block the passage, but the monsters will break through soon. Time is running out and he needs to act fast. With a serious look, she tells him not to let their deaths be worthless. Frustrated, Ash turns to the soldiers, shouting for them to get up and load the last shell. One tired soldier replies that the cannon has reached its limit. If they fire again, it will explode. Ash looks away for a moment before saying they will end up as monster food if they do not act. It is risky, but they have no other choice. A gunner hesitates and points out that they have no way to aim because the foundation is gone and they cannot possibly hit the queen from this distance. Ash does not hesitate and says they will hold the cannon by hand while Damien aims. He orders the soldiers to load the barrel. As he walks over to Damien, Ash knows he cannot explain how Damien's ability works, but every time he shoots the projectile, he always finds its mark. This is their last chance, and he tells Damien he has to fire at the queen. Damien's vision is blurry. He looks up at Ash with a hollow voice and asks what the point is. No matter what they do, nothing will change. Ash does not back down and tells him straight that the queen will die and they will win. Damien's expression darkens. Killing the Spider Queen will not bring his friends back. The world takes everything from him no matter how hard he tries. He is tired and just wants to leave for Van. Ash snaps and cuts him off. He yells that if Damien thinks the world is pointless and life stays miserable no matter what, then he is dead wrong. He grabs him and shouts that this world is brutal. It is not a game. Surviving is like playing on the hardest difficulty. Nothing ever goes as planned, and giving up now would make Damien worthless. They have to fight until the very end. Ash swears he will keep going and keep coming up with strategies right until his last breath. Then he pulls out his dagger. His voice turns sharp and taunting. If Damien really wants to end it, then he should cut off his own head. Ash presses the blade against Damien's shoulder. Damien looks shocked. After a tense moment, Ash tosses the dagger aside. If he is too scared to do that, then he needs to stop chasing ghosts and pull the cannon's lever. That is his only job, to act as if he is just a tool, a key, a trigger, and nothing more. A system message suddenly appears announcing that the passive skill Indomitable Commander is unlocked. Ash's eyes burn with determination as he orders Damien to pull the trigger and take down the Spider Queen. There is a brief silence before Damien finally agrees. His voice is calm as he promises to follow the command. A soldier shouts that the last shell is loaded, but there is no way to cool the cannon barrel. Ash does not care they have to move now. He says he will hold the cannon himself. The soldier warns him that it is too hot, but Ash shakes his head. It is better to burn than face the alternative. He looks at Damien and asks if he is ready. Damien mutters that he cannot feel or see his hands. Ash tells him that it does not matter. Ash grips the cannon with both hands and begins to lift. His teeth grip as a scream of pain rips through him. The soldiers stare in shock until one of them yells that they need to help. Without hesitation, they rush in and start lifting with him. A massive demolisher spider suddenly crashes through and charges straight at them. Ash shouts for Damien. Damien grits his teeth through the pain and activates his skill. Ash yells for him to fire. Damien does not hesitate and pulls the lever. The cannon roars to life as powerful energy surges through it. A projectile erupts from the barrel surrounded by a massive wave of mana. It blasts out of the crumbling tower and soars over the swarm of spiders rushing toward them. The moment the shot is fired, the soldiers drop the cannon and their bodies give out from the effort. The horde keeps coming. Ash collapses with his mind racing. There is no way they should have been able to hit an enemy buried beneath a fallen fortress, but despite the impossible odds, he knows the projectile is locked onto the Spider Queen. Distance and obstacles do not matter. The projectile hurtles toward its target. The Spider Queen lets out a furious scream. Just before it slams into into her head and completely destroys it. Ash thinks back to his early days as a streamer when someone complimented him for the first time and asked how he pulled it off. He doesn't know how to reply, completely caught off guard by the unexpected praise. Another person asks if he is going to keep streaming and says they'll subscribe. He can't remember how he responds to that though. Suddenly he wakes up in pain, unsure if he's even alive. Every little move makes it worse, and he notices his body is all wrapped up in bandages. Lily tells him to take it easy, saying that Damien uses magic to heal him, but he's got some really bad burns. He's surprised to see that she looks okay. She explains that it's going to take a while for him to fully heal. Lily also mentions that he's been out cold for 3 days, and she is worried he might not wake up again after they finally beat the Spider Army. Lily gives him credit for his leadership, explaining that the Spider Army runs off after they take down the Spider Queen, leading to their win. She goes on to describe how the soldiers clear the debris, carry the fallen, and burn the spider bodies. Reinforcements show up to deal with the dead and the leftover enemies. As Ash lies there, staring out the window, he says he gets it now. Lily warns him that his hands, arms, shoulders, and neck are really burned, and even with the healing he gets at Crossroad, the scars are going to stick around. Looking at his bandaged hand, Ash says it's a small price to pay for survival, and asks how Lily feels. He is shocked to see her in a wheelchair. Lily explains that a spider injured her back when her mana ran out. Fortunately, the Spider Queen died right after, which allowed her to survive. However, due to nerve damage, she will never walk again. Despite this, she smiles and tells Ash she is grateful to be alive. Only 9 people survive, including 5 artillerymen, Lucas, and Damien. Ash feels sad and covers his face, thinking about how only a tiny fraction of the hundreds who are there make it. He wonders if he can do something different to save more lives. Lily interrupts his thoughts by gently placing her hand on his arm. She reminds him that he is not all-powerful, and it is impossible to save everyone. He did everything he could. Ash, still feeling guilty, believes he is responsible for the entire battle because he led the charge. Lily reassures him that no one could have predicted the monster attack after 10 years, and no one stopped him for that reason. She urges him not to blame himself. Ash listens while staring sadly at the floor. Suddenly, Lucas bursts in, tears in his eyes, and says he is relieved that Ash is awake. He asks if Ash is in pain and offers to call Damien. Lily is surprised by Lucas's emotional reaction, but Ash tells him he is okay and to calm down. Despite his injuries, Lucas shares his energy and smiles, saying his real strength comes from his toughness. Ash remembers that Lucas is the strongest knight at the SSR level. Lucas gives Ash a long list of battle casualties, noting that not all bodies were recovered, but they did their best. The bodies are now at a forward deployment point in the northern plains. Ash insists on seeing the bodies, getting up and dressing even though Lucas and Lily worry about his condition. He feels responsible for those lives lost under his command and asks Lucas to help him walk. Lucas lets Ash ride on his back, and Ash jokes about Lucas being his horse. Lucas agrees, but Ash smiles and says it was just a joke. They see Damien standing nearby. Ash calls out to him, and Damien smiles, saying he's glad Ash woke up. Ash thanks Damien for helping them win and offers to reward him so he won't have to worry about his future or fight again. As a mercenary, Damien can choose his own path. Damien reminds Ash that he once called him his trigger. He wants to learn about the monster's origin, creator, and purpose, and understand why his friend Van died. He asks Ash for permission to keep following him. Lucas and Ash both smile. Ash tells Damien this is a great choice and gives him his blessing. Now they need a priest to honor the fallen. Later, Ash and the remaining soldiers stand with 2 people near a large blue flame, surrounded by the bodies of their fallen comrades, each covered with cloth. As he looks at them, Ash realizes he made the right choice. It's pointless to dwell on the past. He made his decision and got results, and now he must take responsibility and move forward. He tells Lucas to move the bodies after the funeral and bury them in a vacant lot south of Crossroad. Ash plans to create a cemetery there, similar to the one in the game, to honor those who died in the war. Lucas bows and agrees to follow his orders. Ash thinks about how this isn't just for the recent deaths, but also for the others he killed during his time in the game. He imagines standing in this place in real life, seeing it as part of his redemption. He tells Lucas he won't let himself lose or make mistakes again and clenches his teeth in frustration. Ash turns around and says they are going back to their main base, Crossroad. The system tells him that the prologue is finished and a reward has been added to his inventory. Ash and the group are traveling north to the fortress for 3 days. While sitting in the carriage, Ash feels extremely bored. He doesn't notice that his necklace is glowing red. He asks Lucas if they are getting close. Lucas looks worried but reassures him that they are almost there. Ash thinks it feels like Lucas is just repeating himself. Suddenly, a system window appears, telling Ash he can choose a class when he reaches level 5. His stats show 2 points in strength and endurance, 3 points in agility and mana, and 5 points in intelligence. Ash wonders why his stats are unbalanced and what kind of character he has. Despite the uneven stats, he can pick any class. One class catches his eye, Commander. This class is unlocked by completing the Hard Iron Man mode. Ash has never seen this class before and suspects it might be a hidden option. Interested but cautious, he looks at the system window, unsure of what to do next. He recalls that the last time he saw the title Commander, it was connected to a strong leader. Now, the game wants him to choose the commander class. The system describes that the stubborn commander skill boosts morale and protects against mental debuffs within a 10-meter radius. Ash thinks this ability is good, but he recognizes it won't be useful early in the game, since mental debuffs usually come later. Choosing a class he doesn't really know much about feels like a gamble, and he lets out a frustrated sigh. Staring at the system window, he knows he needs to make a decision soon. Just then, Lucas shouts that Crossroad is coming up. Ash leans out the window, pumped to see the city, which is surrounded by a huge fence. He thinks about how Crossroad used to be the Empire's biggest fortress, which was built to keep monsters from the Dark Lake at bay down south. But now that the monster invasion's slow, the army moves on, leaving the fortress in the hands of mercenaries and old-timers. A lot of them get replaced by green recruits since the Empire needs bodies no matter their skill or where they come from. With the fortress packed, businesses like restaurants, banks, and hotels pop up. Over the years, it is transformed into a sprawling city. People stop calling it the Monster Frontline Fortress City and instead mock it as Suicide Road or City on a Grave, making fun of the mercs who flock there for cash only to meet their doom like moths to a flame. As Ash sits there, he thinks of Crossroad like the human version of the Maginot Line. During the game, he doesn't really pay attention to how rundown the city is. Still, he considers whether he should step up and take on the role of its lord. As the carriages roll through the streets, the locals watch quietly. Lucas drives the horse, stealing glances at the onlookers while Ash watches from the window. Seeing their sad faces, he turns away, knowing it is only natural for them to grieve a commander and potential new lord who just barely makes it through a big loss. But a smile creeps onto his face as he expects this and is ready for it. People start eyeing the stuff in the cart and ask if those things are magic crystals. Ash can't help but smirk, because leaving those 400 high-purity crystals out in plain view is on purpose. They snag those from the black fighters, and they are worth a ton, which is enough to set him up for a while. After pulling off such a crazy mission, he figures he deserves a little reward. Winning over the townsfolk is key to his success, and even if they are unsure about him now, Ash knows he can win them over. He grins and thinks they can hold off on things a bit longer. With a simple but clever plan in mind, he will be back to claim their soul. The carriage rolls to a stop, and Lucas opens the door and bows, telling Ash they have made it. Ash steps out and thanks him while being wowed by Lord Crossroad's massive mansion. He cannot believe he might actually be living there. Just then, a young guy with glasses, Ida, runs out looking super relieved to see Ash is alive. He apologizes for calling him my lord, and Ash tells him to call him whatever feels right. Ida, totally emotional, grabs Ash's hand and says he is worried. Ida handles the city's affairs in the game, and Ash realizes they will team up to run the place. Ida welcomes him home and mentions waiting for a warm bath and dinner. Still in disbelief, Ash remembers the soldiers and tells Lucas to make sure they rest up. Lucas nods and agrees. Ash says he needs to chill tonight, but Lucas, looking anxious, insists he wants to stick around and keep watch. Ash brushes off his worries and says nothing is going to happen overnight. They can get back to business tomorrow. Lucas reluctantly agrees, but looks a bit bummed. Ida then pulls Ash along and shows him the nice warm bath set up to wash away the battle grime. Ash feels relieved because he cannot remember the last time he had a decent bath. He thanks Ida and starts to undress, ready for some well-deserved downtime. Then Ida grins slyly and makes a comment about how impressive it is, calling Ash a classic gamer geek. Ash freezes shocked to hear that old nickname from his gaming channel. With a smirk, Ida shuts the door and cannot believe Ash actually made it through the tutorial. Ash, now super mad, tries to figure out who Ida really is. Grinning Ida raises his hands and drops the bomb that he is the director of Empire Defense. In a fit of rage, Ash throws a punch that sends Ida crashing into the wall, screaming in pain. Fuming, Ash thinks, was he brought here by that idiot? Ida kneels down, apologizing for dragging Ash into this crazy situation and insisting the world really needs him, but Ash does not hear it and gets ready to punch Ida again. Later, with Ida all beat up, he cries and begs Ash to forgive him. Ash finally agrees and asks if Ida is the game's director or the whole world. Ida confirms it. Then Ash asks why Ida brings him to this place. Ida explains that this world has a real ending that no one has ever reached. He resets the world a ton of times, but still does not get to the ending he wants. Ash wonders if that is why Ida has been after his help. Ida snaps his fingers and a system window pops up. He explains that he turns this world into a game and shows it to players from other worlds, uncovering possibilities he had never thought of. But still, no one has reached the true ending. Ash is curious why he is different from the others, since this is the first time he has heard about a true ending. Ida admits he cannot find the right ending himself, but he does something unique. Ash remembers he is the only one who beats the Iron Man Hell difficulty level, and wonders if that is why Ida brings him here. Ida agrees, saying he thinks Ash is the best person to uncover the game's true meaning. However, Ash corrects him, stating Ida does not just bring him here, but kidnaps him and tosses him into this cursed tutorial like some spoiled rich kid. Ida reluctantly admits this is a mistake, like a sudden glitch. He then mentions a reward for Ash's help. While beating Ida, Ash asks about this reward. Ida, with a bleeding nose, promises to grant Ash a wish if he reaches the true ending. Ash, looking confused, wonders if it is like the wishes in that popular manga. Ida, looking beaten up, claims to be almost like a god in this world, but Ash thinks he looks more like a con artist artist. Eider adds he can easily grant Ash's wishes when he sends him back home. Ash asks for 10 billion won. Eider, smiling, offers him hundreds of billions or even more if he wants. Ash is skeptical and thinks Eider probably makes empty promises, but he is still curious about the wish. There is one thing he has always wanted. Eider, sensing this, asks if it is a long-lost dream, something more valuable than money. Ash realizes Eider knows his deepest regret and how much it hurts him. With a sad look, Ash admits that he has never fulfilled his greatest desire. Eider responds that as long as Ash still wants it, it will not be too late. Ash then asks why Eider cannot save the world himself if he is so powerful. Eider explains that his abilities are limited here, and he is just like anyone else, so he needs someone to act for him. Ash asks Eider what happens if he dies. Eider smiles and says everything ends. Ash feels frustrated and thinks that sounds terrible. Eider reminds him that life here is like a game with no saves and no reloads, as Ash played in Iron Man mode. Ash calmly agrees, knowing the game has always been tough about death. Then Eider surprises Ash by offering to send him back to Earth right away. Ash asks if Eider is serious, and Eider nods with a smile, saying he meant to ask earlier but got distracted. Eider raises one hand and asks if Ash wants to go for the true ending and achieve his deepest wish. On the other hand, he asks if Ash prefers a safe life without risks. Ash thinks he would have gone home without a second thought, but now he feels torn between his wish and his confidence. He knows the game well since he beat it on impossible difficulty. Smiling, he decides to chase his wish no matter the cost. Eider gets excited and asks if Ash is for real. Ash confirms he will do his best, but tells Eider that he wants his full support and for him to remember his wish when he hits the true ending. Eider happily says Ash can use him like a loyal servant, but Ash gets serious and tells Eider to sell all the black spider magic crystals by morning. Eider hesitates and points out that the market is closed. Annoyed, Ash insists they are just items to sell. Nervously, Eider agrees but mentions it's late. Eider, looking nervous, agrees and mentions that 388 black spider crystals could score some serious cash. Curious about Ash's plans for the money, he asks what he's up to. Ash smirked and hinted that there was a spot open on his team. Eider, caught off guard, asks what he means, but Ash just walks away without answering. Later on, as Ash heads to the mercenary guild, he starts thinking about the gacha. You know, those games where you spend in-game cash for random prizes, usually leading people to shell out real money for better odds. He grins to himself and wonders if he should give it 100 tries. Near Ash's villa, several carts loaded with gold are parked, and Eider sits beside them, looking completely worn out. Meanwhile, Ash and Lucas arrive at the mercenary guild. Ash comments on the lively energy inside, while Lucas offers to go in first. Ignoring him, Ash kicks open the door and loudly greets everyone. The room falls silent, and a bald man shouts, asking if Ash has a death wish. Ash yells back, calling them filthy dogs and scaring the man into trembling. Grabbing the man's head, Ash declares himself their new employer and asks if he wants to die quickly. As Ash and Lucas walk through the hall, people whisper about him, recognizing him as the third prince who killed his own platoon and wiped out all the spiders on the front line. Ash scans the room looking for anyone who catches his eye. He knows he can recruit some new talent from the mercenary guild, but he is only interested in the top-tier folks from normal to super rare. He notices an old woman sitting comfortably in a chair, surrounded by a purple glow. She puffs on a cigar and smiles at him. This is the Continental Mercenary Guild Crossroad. Ash is curious if she is of SR rank. He takes a seat next to her and asks her name. She introduces herself as Jupiter. Ash quickly figures out she is an SR-ranked lightning caster and cannot believe someone like her is here. He comments on her old-school uniform, and Jupiter explains that it is from the Ever-Black Empire, even though it is a bit outdated. When he asks if she serves the Empire, she reveals that she has been a captain in the 2nd Caster Squadron for 30 years and is now a merc after retiring. Ash gives her props for her dedication to the country, calling her a true soldier. Jupiter, taking a sip of her drink, brushes off the compliment, saying she just needs the cash. Then she asks what brings His Highness to such a humble spot. Ash tells her he is on the lookout for mercenaries. Jupiter shoots back, asking if he is only after cannon fodder, willing to throw away their lives for him. Lucas steps forward ready to back her up, but Ash stops him. Jupiter, unfazed, mentions the rumors about the frontline battle and how Ash pays a high price for his skills. Even though they are mercenaries in it for the money, a lot of people gravitate toward her, and she insists they should not be seen as fools digging their own graves. Ash gets her point and stands up, challenging everyone in the room. He asks if they really sell their lives for just a handful of coins, and if that is all they are capable of. He slams his hand on the bar counter with a fiery challenge, asking if they are just afraid to put a price on their own lives. He tells Jupiter it seems like some serious self-deception. She starts to respond, but hesitates. Then he points out that despite her glowing career, she gets fired for stealing military funds, leaving her shocked that he knows about it. He suggests she is burying herself, and probably never thought he would get her history right. Ash lays it all out. Her involvement in corruption and smuggling leads to her disgraceful dismissal. But there she is, still wearing her military uniform with pride. Ash thinks she is totally shameless, seeing herself as the poster child for corruption, a fallen soldier rotten to the core. But when it comes to fighting, she she is unbeatable, more of a pirate than a soldier, a legend known as Jupiter the Lightning Caster. She puffs on a cigar and tells him that even after everything, she still has the pride of an imperial soldier and that she should mind his word. Before she can finish, Ash cuts her off, asking how much she wants for her so-called pride. Jupiter gives him a long, silent stare while Ash tells her to just name her price to become his hunting dog. Jupiter fires back, saying she will not come cheap. She demands at least 100,000 Adels. To her surprise, Ash ups the ante to 2,000, doubling what she asks for. Jupiter is taken aback by the crazy Emperor's bold offer. He knows that is a hefty sum for a mercenary, but as the prince of the empire and lord of the city, and with Eider having sold all the magic stones, he does not sweat the cost. Flashing his card, Ash says he will buy their fear of death and is ready to double their annual pay. He tells the cowards to head home, but if anyone wants to get rich, they should meet him at the western wasteland of Crossroad that evening. After leaving the guild, Ash makes a pit stop at the church. In the church hall, a woman uses magic to heal his burns, but lets him know the scar sticks around. Ash thanks Lady Saint, but she brushes it off. Then he realizes she is the hidden R-rank heroine, the top healer Saint Margaret, and he can recruit her later if he meets the right conditions. He stands up, buttons his clothes, and decides to hold off on his plan for the day. After placing something on a small column, he tells Margaret he has no time to finish things. She agrees, mentioning she rounded up everyone free now. Spotting Damien, Ash thinks he looks like he is settling in well. He says they can get started, but warns it will not be a walk in the park since he still has a lot to handle today. That evening, Ash stands with Lucas in a cemetery in front of a big crowd at Crossroad West. He watches as soldiers lay the fallen to rest, reflecting on all the coffins coming in from the front lines. By one grave, a necklace with a family photo sits beside the soldier. Standing quietly on stage, Ash takes in the sight of soldiers in formation, with empire flags draping the coffins. A choir sings in a city where death is just part of life, and proper funerals are hard to come by. News about the surprisingly generous compensation for the family spreads through town like wildfire. He is not going to sugarcoat things. This is a show, but it needs to happen. Right now, they are on the front line, and everyone needs to see it as a heroic effort to save humanity. Ash steps up to the crowd gathered in front of the stage and introduces himself as the third prince and the new Lord Ash the Born Hater Everblack. The crowd looks at him with uncertainty and is not sure if this guy is really their new lord. To them, he might come off as just a crazy fool. He spots Jupiter in the crowd and thinks she shows up just in time. Ash straight up tells them that the mortality rate is only going to keep rising. He goes on to say that new tombstones will keep popping up in the cemetery every week, and each one is marked by a choir singing. But he wants to make something clear. Their deaths are way more important than just surviving. He reflects on funeral costs and compensation and mentions that half of his earnings from magic crystals go towards that. It just makes sense that death should not be treated like it does not matter. Ash vows to do everything he can to keep them alive and urges them to stick it out on the front lines. They need to survive and make as much money as possible, while definitely avoiding making him pay for their funerals. As the rifles go off into the sky, Ash wraps up his speech. He wonders if the townsfolk see him as another failed commander, squandering the Lord's money. But honestly, he does not care. What matters is that he shows he can back up his words with action while proving that he is the one who can save them. If he is out there on the front lines, the world will not fade away. He smiles and announces it is time to clear the first level. A system window pops up in front of him showing 3 days and 1 hour until it all kicks off. After the funeral, Ash and Lucas are hanging out in the backyard of the Crossroad estate, staring at a pile of rocks on the ground. Suddenly, a pop-up asks Ash if he wants to activate the teleportation gate. When he says yes, the rocks start floating, totally catching Lucas off guard. They form a portal that lights up right away. Lucas, still in shock, asks what's going on. Ash explains it's the gateway to the dungeon under the lake, a direct path to the enemy base. That's exactly what he meant. Ash thinks of Empire Defense as a mix between tower defense and dungeon exploration, just like the cover says. During levels where monsters attack Crossroad, it's all about tower defense. But in between, there are stages where no enemies show up, and they get to dive into the dungeon beneath the lake to uncover the story behind the monsters. This part, clearing dungeons, is called dungeon offense or free exploration. The gameplay bounces back and forth between defense and attack, something he noticed even before the first level. It's a tough game, but fair. He managed to get through the tutorial, and the start felt solid. He's in a good spot with Damien, who's pretty much overpowered, and Jupiter, who's got an SR rank and a ton of cash. Ash smiles, thinking this is worth a shot. He breaks down the game rules for Lucas, mentioning they can scout the enemy base for the next level. Lucas quickly says he is on board and ready to go. Ash feels a bit confused by his reaction, wondering why Lucas doesn't have more questions. He starts to wonder if Lucas has a feeling that his prince, whom he served his whole life, has changed completely. Oddly, the prince seems to know the layout of the city, even though it's his first time there. He also knows about the dungeon and how it works. It would make sense for him to be curious, but he just goes along with things instead. Ash thinks that's pretty weird. He asks Lucas if he has any questions. Lucas just stares at him for a few seconds, leaving Ash a bit puzzled. After a moment, Lucas bows and says he is just following orders. He has no questions because his job is to be His Highness' sword and shield, ready to attack or defend whenever needed. Ash is a bit surprised as it's hard to believe Lucas has no doubts at all. Still, he figures that trust is more important than any questions and thinks he should reward him for his loyalty. Moving closer to the portal, Ash asks if Lucas is ready to face the abyss with him. Lucas, looking determined, replies that he'd happily dive into the underworld by Ash's side. A system window pops up, and Ash chooses the lake as their destination. In an instant, they are teleported, and the portal disappears behind them. The system window shows a message saying it is loading and teleporting, with a note about how heroes can get stronger by finding better gear in dungeons or crafting it at a forge. Annoyed, Ash shouts that there is no need for all these annoying pop-up notes. It is a bit late for the game to act like it is trying to help now. Once they enter the portal, they find themselves at a dark, creepy lake. Ash scans the area, thinking that this black lake must be the source of the monsters a nightmare-filled hell. This dungeon has cut off the southern part of the world. Lucas suddenly yells for Ash to look at something strange. Tiny bubbles rise from the lake, and then the water splits in two, creating a long passage. Armored human hands start coming up from the lake's bottom, glowing with a bright blue light. An enormous army of energized armor crawls out of the ground, weapons in hand. Ash could not believe his eyes. These crazy tough creatures are showing up now, and it does not matter if he has to deal with goblins, mermaids, or wyverns. It's anything but these guys. His luck is always this awful. Lucas, as chill as ever, pulls out his sword and asks if these are actually the monsters they have to face. Ash's heart races as he notices the system update flashing enemy stat. 1,000 of these things. He can feel himself going pale, and Lucas picks up on it, checking if his highness is feeling alright. Pissed off, Ash clenches his jaw and calls out to Lucas, realizing he mentioned this whole mess during the tutorial. Now, they are in big trouble with an overwhelming enemy force. 741 times, that's how many times he restarts the game. Every time has its reason, but he never hesitates to hit reset when he finds out first-level monsters are living armor. These things are literally made of armor with a soul at their core, making them immune to physical attacks. Sure, they get easier to deal with mid-game if you have the right gear, but right now they are completely unprepared to take on these freaks. Why does it always have to be these cursed monsters? His anger bubbles, like someone is intentionally sabotaging his chances to finish the game. As monsters crawl out of the lake onto the shore, Ash realizes they still have 3 days before the level starts. He tells them to retreat, and Lucas is on board right away. As they back away, Ash promises himself he will do whatever it takes to get through this. Later, Ash gets back home and calls out for Eider as he walks around the place. When Eider shows up, Ash asks how many troops the city has ready to go. Eider mentions they have only managed to gather 526 men, which shocks Ash. He cannot believe they are still stuck at just over 500 after all his efforts. Eider explains that many of the warriors bite the dust during the tutorial. Frustrated, Ash asks if they can hire more. Eider tells him they have already recruited all the mercenaries in town, and nobody else leaves, at least not from here. So Ash decides they need to send people to the nearest city for backup, offering them double the usual pay to get them to come. He also wants to send a delegation to the imperial capital to let them know the monsters are attacking, and they really need full support. Eider writes all this down and checks that Ash is sure about it. Ash has his doubts about reaching out to the Empire, fearing it could lead to trouble later, but he figures it is a must if he wants to survive. Even with his concerns, he makes the call and Eider is on board. Ash then tells Eider to round up all the carpenters, masons, blacksmiths, and alchemists in the city, even though it would be smarter to put them in the army. Eider cannot believe it and warns that this will stop magic crystal production. Ash, annoyed, snaps back that their survival is what matters, not the crystals, and insists they get them all to him right away. Eider gets it and takes off quickly. Meanwhile, Ash sits in his office feeling unhappy, thinking the game's difficulty is way too high. He realizes there is no time for fear, even though he has not fully made up his mind until now. The more complicated the game gets, the more he has to juggle. Then a message pops up in the system window, asking if Ash wants to take on the class of Commander Novice. He hesitates for a second, knowing he needs to go all in, and then he hits the button, saying he's in. The system congratulates him on becoming a rookie commander. Ash isn't impressed and frowns at the screen, thinking the whole thing feels pretty underwhelming. Suddenly, Ash feels a sharp pain and notices strange changes that make him cry out in surprise. He checks a system window that shows a 50% reduction in his growth and equipment ownership. Confused, Ash stares at the screen and wonders what just happened. He swears loudly, wondering if the system is playing tricks on him. Frustrated, he grips the system window tightly, demanding to know what's happening and what kind of class could cause such bad debuffs. Ash picks up a poker, ready to hit Eider for creating this system. But then new system windows appear. They show that he has gained new ability, Totem of Attack, Defense, Super Buffer, Main Order, and access to the group synergy system. Ash pauses and reads through the information in the windows. He realizes he can now give his allies bonus buffs in battle, boosting their defense and attack. Now he knows why the debuffs were applied. Ash thinks about these new abilities and sees that they are actually helpful. The system window explains that group synergy is a feature of the commander class, offering bonuses based on the classes of party members. Ash smiles, thinking this class is great since he is used to managing from the sidelines. He looks at the poker he grabbed in anger and is surprised at how quickly he calmed down and put it back in its place. The next day at his place, Ash is just staring at the scene in front of him, waiting for Eider to fill him in on what went down. Eider explains that they ignored the draft order, so he had to round up their leaders fast. As Ash looks at the tied-up folks kneeling before them, he quietly thinks that this is basically a kidnapping. The president of the Blacksmiths Union is fuming and demands an explanation. On the other hand, the president of the Joiners Union, sitting with the other annoyed union leaders, gripes about being pulled away from processing magic crystals. He asks if Ash plans to take the heat for their lost profits. Ash is surprised to see how angry they seem. He figures he should apologize, but with a dark vibe and a fierce look, he asks if they want to end up dead. He reminds them that as a prince and lord, they need to answer him without any excuses. The union presidents look at him sympathetically and apologize, explaining that this is their first experience dealing with a lord from the imperial family. Ash realizes his position is pretty solid. The negotiations go smoothly, and when the president asks about the deal, Ash offers them 20% of the crystals the army gets at the base price. Direct access to materials is going to be super profitable for them, but they'll have to prioritize military equipment production when he asks. He assures them they'll be paid fairly and knows he's caught their interest. It's the best deal he could make right now, even though some folks might think it's a waste of cash. The presidents are totally on board and want to know when they can get started. Ash smiles, knowing that money is the best motivator. The system shows there are 2 days and 13 hours left before the first level kicks off. Later, Ash brings up that Lucas has probably already filled them in. 1,000 living armor monsters are heading to the city and should arrive in about 2 days. Seeing their shock, Ash notes that they're just now understanding the real danger. Lucas asks what needs to be done, and Ash replies they'll need all the resources they can gather, promising to assign tasks to everyone. Lucas, now the commander-in-chief of the troops, hears from Ash that the soldiers are moving way too slow, and he's gonna need to beat them into shape. Lucas nods and jumps right in without a second thought. Lily, who can't walk, tries to bow out, but Ash cuts her off, saying he needs her help. He reassures her that she won't have to step onto the battlefield, so she doesn't need to stress too much. He assigns her the task of leading the effort to restore the defense artifacts, and she gets it right away. Even though Ash thinks about saying sorry for not letting her retire, he knows she's got to keep serving the city as a civil servant for now. Jupiter takes a drag from her cigar and grins, asking His Highness if her salary will go up if she does a good job. Ash can't help but think how greedy she is, just like in the game. He tells her, sure, her pay will definitely go up based on how well she performs. Jupiter smirks, saying she hopes he's ready for her promotion. She's just been named commander of a special forces unit, and she's confident that no mercenary does it better than her. Eider hands Damien the crossbow that Ash specifically set up for him. The system says it's just a run-of-the-mill level 10 crossbow. Damien figures he'll give it a shot as a long-range sniper since His Highness gave the order. Ash notices Damien's kind of awkward stance, but thinks he'll get the hang of it soon enough, especially with his skill using the manic cannons. He asks Damien about his glasses. Damien explains that he has super sharp vision, so he usually wears glasses to tone it down. Since he needs his full vision now, he's decided to ditch them. Eider comments on how lucky Damien is. He was worried that the glasses would affect Damien's performance. However, he quickly stops talking when Ash snaps at him to shut up. After the meeting, Ash goes to the south wall of Crossroad. There, the two presidents greet him as he checks on the progress of the castle wall. The president of the Blacksmiths Union admits that things are not going well because the walls have been neglected for a long time. Ash asks Eider how the city, which is a fortress, could ignore such important repairs. Eider explains that fewer monster attacks led to a drop in magic crystal production. This caused the previous lord to cut the budget due to a lack of funds. Ash highlights the irony that the fortress is weakening, because there have been fewer invasions, even though it was built to protect against monsters. He insists that they must use available resources to fix the wall and asks if everyone understands. The presidents agree, and Ash tells them to return to work, because the monsters won't wait for them to finish. Later at the carpenter's workshop, Ash gathers the crew and makes it clear. They're all on the same page about what's going down. He tells them they're going to be building a wall for the next 3 days. The president looks surprised and asks what she's talking about. Ash explains he needs a tall fence to block a path. The president pushes back, saying monsters can smash through a wooden wall with no problem and doubting it'll hold up. Ash counters that the wall doesn't have to last forever, as it just needs to be a temporary barrier. He stresses it needs to be really high and tough. Then he cuts off any more questions, telling them to stop chatting and get to work. As they put their heads down for the next 2 days, things were moving along quickly. Suddenly, a system alert pops up. With only 30 minutes left before the first level kicks off, one of the soldiers is on the lookout, scanning the forest with binoculars in absolute silence. Then he spots an army of living armor coming out of the trees, heading straight for the city. They sound the alarm with a drum beat, letting everyone know the enemies are closing in. The monsters, all geared up, slowly make their way to the town. Ash tries to keep everyone calm, telling them not to worry and that these monsters are just a chaotic mob trying to overwhelm them. But deep down, he knows that that's not the case. These are the toughest monsters he could run into at the start of the game. He brags that they have the strongest army in the Southern Empire, even though he knows it's a stretch. They're really more of a mismatched group of retired soldiers and newbies. He claims their defense is solid and their gear is top-notch, but he's well aware that no amount of hype or cash will actually get them ready for this. Ash reassures them that they can handle the monsters, even though he's just bluffing. He insists they'll win if they stick to his orders, but inside, he's the one who's actually scared. As he looks at the massive thundercloud rolling in with the army of living armor, he silently wishes Jupiter good luck, knowing the outcome depends entirely on her. Meanwhile, Jupiter is in the forest with her crew of young mercenaries, talking to the nervous recruits. With a strong voice, she tells them that their moment has come. Jupiter and her crew ride in on horseback, charging ahead of the army of living armor while Ash watches from a distance. To make things easier, he baited them into chasing his mercenaries. As they zoom past the spot he set up, the ground suddenly gives way under them, sending the monsters crashing into a pit. Ash's trap works even if it's not as deep as he hoped. Still, it should be enough to slow them down. He orders her to act immediately. Jupiter holds a ball of lightning and declares that it's time to fill her wallet with money. She uses her first skill, Silicon Bleaching Zone, and launches a solid ball of lightning into a large crowd of monsters. This magic causes serious injuries to many of the monsters. The monsters that survive this attack start to rise and look at her. Jupiter, angry, demands to know what they are staring at, as she knows them well. A bright yellow lightning bolt then strikes the surviving monsters. Lightning strikes from the sky and hits Jupiter's cigar, turning it bright blue. Lightning also comes from her hand, and she smiles, knowing they will have a roast meal for dinner. She waves her hand, and more lightning blasts down from the sky, hitting a crowd of monsters. The soldiers wake up happy. Ash realizes that Jupiter marked monsters with her first skill and destroyed them with her second. A system shows that she has killed 56 monsters. Ash watches from a distance and thinks that Jupiter is doing well. However, there are still 1,000 enemies left. A large crowd of monsters continues to fall into the moat and rise on the other side. Ash takes a look around. Realizing this battle is just a small piece of something way bigger, he tells everyone to pull back. Turning to the city, Jupiter repeats his order, urging the team to retreat quickly. She and her squad are riding hard on horseback, chased by a bunch of living skeletons. With a serious look on her face, Jupiter reminds her crew they need to keep running and not look back if they want to survive. Ash notes that everything seems to be rolling out just like he planned and tells them to get ready for the next step. One rider glances back and sees the skeleton horde getting closer. Ash starts to worry, knowing they're not out of the woods yet. Jupiter shouts for everyone to make a run for the city walls, and they all leap toward the big wooden barriers at the entrance. As they ride, the monstrous army continues to close in. Ash feels a bit relieved that they haven't been caught yet and gives Jupiter some props for her leadership. The sun is shining bright, casting shadows over the huge wooden walls protecting the city. Ash is ready to welcome the so-called freaks to his kingdom of barriers. He can't help but wonder if they'll try to bypass or tear down these walls. As Jupiter speeds toward the city entrance, she glances back at the living armor hot on her trail. Ash knows their minds are made up. They're out to kill. He watches as the monsters get funneled through the tight spaces between the walls, just like he wanted. They aren't just blocked. They're totally trapped. Ash raises his hand and signals the soldiers to get ready. He watches as the monsters bunch up and their movement becomes more restricted. He stands at the edge of the wall and gives the order to fire. The cannons roar to life and unleash a storm of shells onto the horde below. For several seconds, explosions rip through their ranks and tear them apart. Ash takes it all in. This is how you control the battlefield. Turn it into a death zone. Damien stands next to Ash and asks if the attack stopped the monsters. Ash, still serious, says more are coming. The living armor glows with energy under their helmets as it gathers information and raises shields to protect against the constant bombardment. Ash smiles slightly but stays cautious, recognizing their strength. He had seen this coming. Ash turned to Lily and told her to get the gravity field artifact going. The antique lit up and two magicians pumped energy into it. A thick dome of power surrounded the armored monsters, making them slow down as gravity kicked in harder. Grinning, Ash called for Lucas, who raised his sword and got the soldiers ready to aim their ballistas. He directed them to target the monsters' chests and fire. The huge arrows shot through the living armor's shields, smashing their defenses and wrecking their bodies. Ash feels satisfied as the crossfire destroys the front line of living armor. The gravity field and ballistas work well together. A soldier runs to him, shouting that some monsters are getting past the walls. Ash, surprised, turns to see the living armor moving around the barriers. He clenches his teeth and curses softly. He hadn't expected so many of them. He quickly calls to Jupiter, telling her to handle the monsters on the right. She smiles and agrees, racing off with her squad and saying the real fight is just starting. As monsters charge at her, she strikes them with a powerful lightning bolt. Ash watches her and feels confident that she is in control. He needs to defend the left side, so he tells Damien to act. Damien picks up his crossbow and uses his special ability. He shoots an energy arrow at a monster, hitting its helmet and causing it to collapse. The soldiers around him are amazed, and Damien feels proud of his success. Ash admires Damien's ability to destroy a ghost with just one arrow. As Ash looks over the battlefield, he sees the center is still dangerous. Jupiter is holding the right flank, and Damien controls the left. He checks the system counter that tracks the number of defeated monsters and sees it nearing 500. He smiles, thinking that everything is going well, at least for now. But then he notices something unsettling. The spirits of fallen monsters are gathering in one spot, forming the face of a creepy, smiling figure. The system identifies the Ghost Knight as a level 25 boss, the leader of the Living Armor Legion. Ash feels surprised, thinking this shouldn't happen yet. The Ghost Knight hovers above the battlefield, casting an ominous presence. The Ghost Army is already strong, and usually boss monsters appear in Phase 2 after all the lower enemies are defeated. But not all the ghosts are gone, so Ash wonders why the boss is here now. The Ghost Knight doesn't attack or use area spells. It just floats silently. Ash realizes this is not just a game, it's real. Ash sees the soldiers panicking. A giant monster in the sky terrifies them, leading to chaos. This fear affects their teamwork, a stark contrast to how humans handle war compared to battling monsters. Just seeing the boss monster demoralizes the troops. Even the horses react, with one kicking out in fear and throwing Jupiter off. Jupiter struggles to stay on her horse but falls and hits her head hard. The living armor she was fighting takes advantage of the situation and moves toward her. Lying on the ground and bleeding from her head, she mutters, "This is bad." From a distance, Ash starts to panic, realizing the monsters are breaking through. He sees Jupiter lying unconscious with many monsters rushing toward her. Her squad dismounts quickly to form a protective line. One soldier shouts that they need to protect the sorcerer. Ash feels worried. Jupiter, their main offense, and her entire squad are in danger. Lucas suggests they redirect cannon fire to help her squad. Ash refuses, knowing that leaving the death zone would let even more monsters escape. He tells Lucas to restore their firepower, as the soldiers have lost their rhythm. He mentally apologizes to Jupiter and hopes she can hold on a bit longer. Jupiter suddenly comes to, screaming from the pain. She sits up, touching the blood on her head, annoyed that she got hurt. One of her men runs over, asking if she is okay and begging for her help. She looks around and sees her squad still fighting off the monsters. The pain is brutal, but she knows she has to move. The soldier tries to reassure her that the rescue squad is on its way, but before he can finish, living armors charge at him. He swings his mace, smashing one in the helmet. The metal bends, but the thing doesn't go down. His eyes widen in shock. It is still standing. Jupiter suddenly spots something and shouts for him to turn around, but it is too late. A spear tears through him from behind. He stands there, stunned, unable to believe it. The monsters behind him were supposed to be dead. He turns just in time to see a living armor, missing half its body, still moving. Before he can react, more monsters swarm him and tear him apart. Jupiter's blood boils. She tries to cast a spell, but something feels off. Her control is slipping. Nearby, another soldier is grabbed, screaming for his life as the monsters pierce him without mercy. One of the remaining squad members panics. He drops his shield and bolts. He doesn't get far. A spear from the same half-destroyed living armor strikes him from behind, killing him instantly. Jupiter watches as her squad's tiny defense crumbles in no time. She feels the heavy presence of the living armor getting closer, and the smell of rust and decay fills the air. Regaining her focus, she channels some lightning into her hand and, feeling frustrated, lets a powerful bolt loose toward the monsters, taking out a few right in front of her. But she realizes it isn't as strong as before, and casting multiple spells has really drained her. More monsters close in, and Jupiter knows she is running out of options. She calls out to the last guy in her group, telling him to run. He hesitates, but she insists that at least one of them has to make it. She'll buy him time with her magic, no matter what. The guy shouts that he won't do it. He'd rather stick around and wait for the rescue team. After all, she's the magician, and she has to deal with these monsters using her lightning. Jupiter is taken aback and asks him if that's really what he says. The guy with the spear jumps into a fighting stance and confidently states that according to the mercenary, survival guide rule number 2, you should never leave a magician's side. With a firm look, he declares that instead of trying to escape alone without a horse, it makes more sense to stick around and help her survive. The young mercenary's tactics are working. He doesn't try to kill the living armor, but instead pushes and slams them back with his spear, keeping his distance. He glances over his shoulder and says he'll hold out somehow, telling Jupiter to get her next spell ready. From the wall, Damien fires his crossbow trying to help, but it's not enough. The living armors keep pushing forward. Jupiter finally gathers enough mana to summon a lightning storm, but just as she's about to cast it, spears pierce through the young mercenary's body. She watches in shock, fury rising inside her. These creatures have to die! Without hesitation, she unleashes her magic, sending lightning bolts crashing down from the sky. As the last of the monsters fall, Jupiter stands still, staring at the body of the final member of her squad. She wonders if gathering mana just a second earlier could have saved him. He lies there, coughing up blood, his body trembling from the pain. Jupiter, too experienced to keep count of the deaths she has seen, looks down at him and asks about the third rule of survival for a mercenary. The mercenary, caught off guard, turns to her and, through the pain, mutters, "Never take on missions with suspiciously high price tags." His vision fades, and with a faint call for his mother, he takes his last breath. Jupiter scoffs at the rule. If he stuck to that mindset, he'd never have made it far. Clenching her fist, she calls down another bolt of lightning. He needed to take high-risk, high-reward jobs if he wanted to get rich. Striking down a monster in one clean hit, she reminds herself that only the dangerous missions are worth it. Taking out a few more enemies, she concludes mercenaries should avoid mages. They always took the credit. Her hand trembles from pain, blood dripping freely as she mutters that if he really wants to survive, being a mercenary is the wrong choice. She pulls out a cigar but realizes she doesn't even have the strength to light it. With a sigh, she gives up as the horde is closing in. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it all ends. Then, out of nowhere, Lucas appears on horseback, charging straight toward her. His sword glows with energy as he swings, cutting down several monsters in a single strike. Jupiter, stunned, watches as her cigar slips from her fingers. Lucas turns to her, his expression calm like none of this is a big deal. Earlier at the fort walls, Ash tells Lucas to get the fire net back up and take care of the soldiers. He cannot believe they are scared of just one monster. Ash activates his skill Indomitable. Commander, and suddenly the soldiers feel pumped up and brave. He is taken aback, realizing that this skill not only keeps them from losing their minds, but also boosts their morale. He instructs Lucas to lead the rescue team to save Jupiter. Aware that he is sending Lucas into a risky situation, still, Lucas jumps at the chance without thinking twice. When Lucas gets to Jupiter, he boosts her onto his horse, and they take off to escape the monsters. As they race away, the monsters throw spears at them, but Lucas quickly takes care of it. Jupiter jokes about wanting him to meet her granddaughter, but Lucas tells her to save her energy for recovering mana. She laughs, finding him cold without the prince, but sweet in his own way. She thanked him, but he just said he was following orders, his face serious as he thought of the comrades he could not save. Jupiter reassures him that they will have time to mourn after the battle. Back at the city gates, the soldiers blast cannons at the monsters while Jupiter stands there, her anger boiling. Ash watches the chaos, thinking his skill has fixed the death zone, but he feels bad about losing so many soldiers. Reality proves to be way crazier than any game, especially with the fear and confusion messing up his original plan. He knows he has to be more careful moving forward. The giant wooden walls are in ruins and the kill zone is gone. Monsters rush the gates, and Ash calls for a ceasefire as they fight along the fortress wall. From the system window he sees he has taken out 2/3 of the enemy, so he feels like the battlefield is still under his control. Lucas lets Ash know that he has saved Dame Jupiter, but he is not too thrilled about her getting booted from duty. Ash figures it is better to just go along with the whole mage vibe. Jupiter, on the other hand, feels pretty embarrassed about innocent lives lost. Ash tries to comfort her, saying nobody could have seen a monster popping up and scaring the horses. But Jupiter, with her battle experience, insists she should deal with it better. Now she is fired up and ready to take on the Spirit Knight, but Ash tells her to chill out and rest up to be ready for the right moment. Meanwhile, the swarm of living armor keeps coming at the fortress while the cannons fire ineffectively. Realizing this, Ash tells them to stop, pointing out that the kill zone is gone, so firing the cannons is pointless. He calls over Damien to take a breather, reminding him that tougher challenges are on the way. Damien, worn out, agrees while the living armor begins to scale the walls. Ash knows if the walls hold up, they will try to climb over. He gets the soldiers ready for close combat, forming ranks with maces and shields, bracing themselves for the fight. The real showdown between flesh and spirits is about to kick off. As the monsters climb up the wall, Ash waves to the soldiers, who immediately start tossing stones and debris at them. Bits of stone, steel scraps, and leftover materials from the fortress fly everywhere. Ash's plan works as many of the living armors fall apart, but a few get back up almost right away. He feels a surge of frustration watching the relentless foes keep pushing forward as if they do not even care about the barrage. With a firm shout, he tells the soldiers to use their spears to push the monsters back. Then he opens the system window in front of him, reshuffling the teams and putting Jupiter in charge. The system lets him know that group interactions are now active. This surprise makes Ash feel a little better. One of the monsters smashes a soldier's spear, leaving the guy screaming in fear. As more enemies swarm up the wall, the soldiers brace themselves, ready to face the horde. The living armors radiate an intense energy with their helmets glowing ominously. Ash cannot shake off his worry about the tough battle, waiting for them and wondering if the soldiers can hold up under the pressure. Out of nowhere, Lucas lands a serious hit, cleaving through one monster's helmet. He zips along the wall, taking out any monster in his way. With his glowing sword raised high, he declares he will take care of it all, telling the soldiers to stick to their positions. Feeling pumped, they nod and prepare for the fight. Ash smiles, knowing they have no choice. They need to survive, and each soldier has to give their best. He calls Lily and tells her to activate the next artifact. She agrees and orders the magicians to activate the artifact of haste. A system notification confirms that all soldiers receive a 5% speed boost for 5 minutes. As Ash reviews his skills, he sees how they help in close combat. The soldiers fight bravely against the monsters, shouting to push them back. Ash watches the battle, feeling reassured for the moment. Lucas keeps attacking, cutting through the living armor. Ash recognizes Lucas's strong will strike, which is a skill that gets stronger with each enemy he defeats. Lucas does well, but Ash knows that it is not enough. The soldiers are still in trouble. One soldier gets hurt and cries out in pain while another pulls him back, calling for fresh fighters to take their place. Seeing the mounting casualties, Ash grimly thinks about how his soldiers get tired, but the living armor shows no signs of stopping. Damien approaches Ash, telling him to return to the front lines, but Ash halts him. They need his strength for the final boss fight, and for Jupiter's as well. Ash watches his soldiers fall and thinks about how to save them by destroying the living armor. Then a pillar of fire shoots up from the battlefield. Ash is surprised by the surge of magic and then sees Lily on the wall using her fire magic to destroy many living armors. Ash praises her for the powerful attack. Lily seems confused and reminds him that she is always a magician. Ash, still excited, promises her a promotion. Lily sighs, looking disheartened, and says she has been planning to resign. He moves behind her and takes hold of her wheelchair, trying to reassure her by promising a bonus for her hard work and pushing her to let loose with more fire magic. Lily looks worried and mentions that her mana is almost tapped out and that she wants to live. Ash thinks to himself that their attacks are hitting harder now, boosted by 25% because of everyone working together. Feeling encouraged, he shouts for Lily to unleash her flamethrower spell again. Clearly annoyed, she shoots back, saying that he needs to treat her like a person. Ash watches his soldiers struggling, using their bodies to fend off the monstrous wave of enemies. Lucas slices through them with his sword, and Ash tries to give Lily a potion to restore her mana, remembering how she turned the monsters to ash before. They finish off the last few creatures together, and the final piece of armor falls apart. The soldiers are silent for a moment, then erupt into cheers for their hard-fought victory, but Ash quickly shuts them down, shouting that it is not over yet. Lucas, who is dead tired, looks at him confused and weary. Ash insists they stay sharp as there is still one more enemy out there. Out of nowhere, the leftover pieces of armor start to rise up and fly toward the boss, who has been just sitting there until now. The armor comes together, forming a huge suit around the boss, creating a gigantic figure with an enormous sword. The transformation is done as the boss lands next to the city wall with a massive crash, shaking the ground and catching the soldiers off guard. Ash stares at the giant figure, feeling a wave of frustration wash over him. He cannot believe this is just a level 1 boss, as this has to be some kind of cruel joke. Fear creeps into his mind, making his hand shake a bit, but he pushes it away, clenching his fist and reminding himself that it is just a level 25 monster. He shouts at the soldiers to fire without holding back on the ammo. Cannon blasts hit the beast, but it just keeps coming unfazed. Ash keeps urging everyone to shoot, determined to take the creature down before it reaches the wall. No matter the ruthless attack, the ghostly knight keeps pushing forward, refusing to back down. He calls out to Lily, who turns to him and asks what is going on. Ash tells her they need to get the third artifact going. Lily nods and gives the order, activating the artifact, which is a magic multiplier that doubles their magical power. The system notifies them that Jupiter's magic is being enhanced. With renewed resolve, Lily feels a surge of energy and prepares to strike. Ash points to the approaching monster and orders her to concentrate all her power on the breastplate. Empowered by the artifact, Jupiter advances toward the beast, her hands crackling with yellow lightning. She warns the boss that he should be more careful around lightning as bolts begin to rain down from the sky. She directs a powerful strike at the monster, piercing its chest and revealing a core of blue energy. Ash is stunned, realizing the fight isn't over yet. The monster, now up against the wall, lifts its huge sword. Ash knows that if it swings down, everything's going to fall apart. He quickly shouts to Jupiter, telling her to hit it again. Furious, Jupiter calls down blue lightning and throws it at the monster, determined to put an end to it. The lightning blasts the creature, but it still keeps raising its sword. Seeing the danger, Ash yells at the soldiers to run, telling them to get out of the way of the sword. The soldiers are frozen in fear, watching as the monster gets ready to attack. Lucas rushes over to Ash, telling him to move, but before he can finish, the beast brings its sword down hard. The wall explodes with the impact, and the soldiers are flung back, screaming in terror and pain. Ash hits the ground hard, wincing, but Lucas quickly checks on him. Shaken, but okay. Ash asks what happens to the wall, Damien, Lily, and Jupiter gather together, looking at the destruction. Ash turns to see a massive sword stuck in the wall, and the energy within the giant armor is slowly fading away. As the sound quiets down, the armor shatters into big pieces that crash to the ground, releasing the last of its energy. Ash takes in the scene, realizing they've finally taken down the first-level boss, the Phantom Knight. Spirits start to rise from the broken armor, drifting off into the air. He raises his hand, his palm glowing bright, and declares this place a human domain. With a single command, he orders the monster to vanish. The system kicks in, confirming his use of the Indomitable Commander skill. A powerful wave of energy surges from him, wiping out the oncoming souls in an instant. The soldiers look around in shock, wondering where the giant and the ghosts disappeared to. They stare at the glowing particles left behind, amazed that their prince just made them disappear. Right on cue, the clouds break apart and sunlight floods the city. The sky clears and Ash throws his fist in the air, claiming their victory. They made it, and they'll keep pushing forward. The soldiers are still trying to wrap their heads around what just happened, but the fear in their eyes fades. Lucas watches Ash with a knowing smile, recognizing the shift from sheer terror to the relief of victory. Ash keeps his fist raised, wondering for a second if it was his words or his power that made the difference. Either way, it just feels right. He shouts to the soldiers that they'll crush every last monster and survive no matter what. The system chimes in, confirming the first level is officially cleared and reminding Ash to check his inventory for the reward.